The Ford Ranger. We did a video on this circa 2019 when it was released in the United States, and needless to say, we weren't the biggest fans. However, I'm going to take a more objective approach with this video because things have been slightly updated. We're going to cover the exterior, interior, and of course the technical details. So let's get started with that. The basics, 3 trims. XL, poverty spec, starts around 25 grand. You get the XLT, which pushes 30, and then you get the Lariat, which is the upper trim level. The big thing for this model year, they've added the Tremor package, and you might wonder what the hell is that? Now, it's not something that gives you the shakes or will create an earthquake. It's designed to bridge the gap between the Ranger Raptor, which we don't get here, and the FX off-road package. It's somewhere in the middle, and it adds $4,300 to the price. So you can only get that on the XLT, which is this, and the Lariat. The way this is configured with the infotainment, the Tremor pack, it's $42,000. We'll get into all the technical details of that in the shop. Overall, the exterior looks slightly different, and it helps to have a giant Tremor logo on the back. Now, when you get over the exterior, it definitely looks like one of the better trucks. It's more mainstream without looking overstyled or understyled. Now, the big thing is when you get into the interior, and this is where I lost my mind with the last truck. I'll start with the pros. The basics are here. It really is a low contrast matte interior space with no gimmicky plastics, nothing flashy, nothing overly shiny. It is just functional, which means you can have obliterate this thing with mud, diarrhea, or if you're hauling stuff, you're not going to tear it up and it's not going to look horribly dirty all the time. So that's good. The seats are very comfortable. The Tremor package gets this fabric center towards the back and a Tremor logo, but they do have a lot of give to them and a lot of padding. There is minimal bolstering, however. The other thing that they add here is the auxiliary switches on the upper dashboard. You can toggle those. You can do LED light bars to blind other people on the road. You can add bull horns, whatever you're going to put on here, at least it's here and it's easily accessible with physical switches. Now, let's get into the down and dirty. This looks horribly cheap. From the way that the key feels, the way that it goes into the door, it feels extraordinarily old, at least 2 generations old. The physical buttons in here, which is everything's physical, thank God, but they feel cheap, like they put no effort into it. They're super small, hard to touch when you're on the go, but they have made 2 improvements to the things that I complained about the most with the last truck. If you opt for the infotainment package and not the basic screen, the next generation infotainment is way faster. It no longer lags to death. It no longer freezes up where it's totally unusable. And they've also made it much more easy to navigate. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto work pretty well in here with minimal lag or issues. And because of the infotainment, they've also updated the gauge cluster, which was a disaster in the last truck. This is more traditional. 2 analog gauges and a center screen that works perfectly well for all your multifunction information. Now, we don't have the Bang & Olufsen audio system in here. This is the base audio. If you saw our review, you'll know the B&O was one of the worst we tested, and this base audio sounds almost identical. So the good thing is you can get a better soundstage out of it by turning off the speed compensated volume and changing the driver or the focus of the speakers to the driver. And then you get a better soundstage, better imaging. It doesn't sound great. At least it's tolerable. Everything else has a good physical presence, the shifter, the terrain modes, all the storage is excellent. You have a manual parking brake, the cup holders are big, and there's plenty of storage in the center area. And of course, the door space is good for a whole bunch of stuff. The back seats are comfortable, assuming you have the front seats a little bit farther forward, and the bed is what you expect. At least this truck has some coating on the bed so you won't tear it up. However, the liftgate is not soft open and soft close, so you have to be a little bit more careful with that. But overall, this is an extraordinarily old platform and truck. It feels and looks that way everywhere on the interior space, but we're going to talk more about that during the drive and in the shop segment, so let's do it right now.
Mark, we're underneath the Danger Ranger. This is the Ford Ranger with the Tremor package. The version we have is the XLT, not the Lariat. So the way the Tremor package works is it's the most off-road capable package available for the Ford Ranger, and it can either be had on the Lariat or the less expensive XLT. And it gives you some off-road goodies, Mark, so walk me through that.
So the Tremor package does truly give you more off-road capability. So for one, you get a better approach, departure, and breakover angle. It improves it by roughly 2 degrees all the way around. The suspension travel improves in the front by 6.5 inches, and in the back it's 8.5. So you're getting the wheel travel, you're getting the bigger tires at 34 inches, and you're getting the skid plates, you're getting a whole bunch of real off-road things that people want out of a product like this. You're just not getting the power. It's standard now with the 2.3 liter, the EcoBoost engine, and it does make a significant amount of horsepower, made it to a 10-speed automatic, which we're going to go over all that during
And the
drive.
torque is the big thing. It produces about 310 foot-pounds of torque, and because it's a turbocharged application versus some of the naturally aspirated variants found in the Tacoma and the, I believe,
Frontier.
the Frontier, you get torque earlier, which in a truck is theoretically a good thing. The one thing to bring up, though, is much like the Tacoma and the Colorado, this is actually a really old product underneath. This Ranger was introduced in like 2019 in the United States, but this is built on the T6 architecture. So it's really a very old platform found in places like Australia.
It's a global truck platform, body on frame, that they've also had to improve. It's not just a carryover. They've had to make some changes for the American market specifically.
And the increase of payload, and I will say this frame, it is all steel and basically everything underneath is steel, but it is fully boxed.
The next thing that they've done here is maintained the towing capacity of 7,500 pounds. So they haven't altered that. And they have added the addition of Fox shocks. So the Fox shocks in the front are aluminum bodied. The back are steel. However, there is a piggyback reservoir. And these are not like high-end Fox shocks that you're going to find on
The real Raptor.
like the Raptor. They are, it's just giving you a little bit extra oiling capacity and preventing anti-foaming and all the heat soaking that you're getting by giving you those piggyback reservoir, piggyback canisters on there in the back. So again, these are all incremental changes. They made some tuning differences to spring rates and all that as well.
And it's still AA arm in the front and a live rear axle in the rear. So it's a real truck, unlike something like a Ridgeline.
You get an electronic locking rear differential as well. So that also gives them the ability to add the terrain modes that you can choose, like mud, sand, basically what every manufacturer is now trying to advertise, but this is not a unibody design. So you are getting the truckishness there, you're getting the off-road capability, and it's just really up to the buyer if they want to spring for the type of money that this is going to require to get to get this. And let's talk about that on the drive.
All right.
We're back in the Ranger, Jack. 2.3. We got lots of horsepower here.
Show me.
Subtle ain't a fake engine noise coming from that turbocharged 4-popper. Ooh,
Lots of torque, though, Mark.
lots of torque. No, it's I'm joking around, but really this is completely adequate. It's got enough torque. It feels smooth when you're going flat out, and it is colder, so turbocharged engines and tuning like that. But we're gonna get right into it. So there's been some minor adjustments here in terms of drivability, and it's largely because of the suspension package. And while personally I think it's a little rough, over certain pavement types you get a lot of like shunt, a lot of like harsh, weird frequency impacts from it. This is the trade-offs of having this type of suspension. You have the lift, you have the increased ride height, and the better damping or wheel travel.
It is floatier than the original or base Rangers we've driven, though, as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But it's an off-road truck, and this
Yeah.
is, to be fair to Ford, I can't believe I'm going to be defending them. Everything in this segment, the mid-sized truck in the United States, everything's old. I can't believe Nissan has the most modern and most recently
Right.
refreshed mid-sized truck with a Frontier, but the Tacoma is ancient,
Yeah.
the Colorado's ancient, and this thing is, even though it's new for 2019, it's really an old truck as well. So I can't really fault Ford there. And this motor is far more potent, at least around town. It may not be as reliable as the V6 that's found in the Tacoma,
right,
but
which
it's
is going away anyway.
It's
so,
pretty effective.
It is effective for the class, and I think if you're a Ford person and you want this mid-sized truck thing, it's kind of a no-brainer, really. But the problem is now Ford has made this a lot more irrelevant than it was before. When he first talked about this, we didn't have the Bronco, we didn't have the Maverick. So at this price point and this interior space, and some of it's just lack of refinement for its age, I would personally rather be in a Bronco. But if you underneath
If
the
you're going
bed.
off-road, yeah.
Yes, if you're going off-road. Or, you know, you could save a lot of money going to the Maverick if you don't need the off-road capability
Or the
of this.
towing.
Or the towing. Or if you need really true truckness, you get an F-150. So this is kind of in this weird limbo. The last thing I'm going to talk about before we get into the final thoughts, Jack, is because a lot of this is so much carryover, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I want to just kind of talk about the transmission and the drivetrain here. I complained about it before, but really the big thing here is the way that this is tuned, and you can feel it right now. This is a perfect example. There's so much drivetrain vibration.
It almost feels like a wheel is out of balance.
It does, because what it's doing is it's holding too high of a gear at a too low of an RPM. So if you get caught in this 35 mile an hour zone, you'll see the tackle be spinning at like 1200 RPM, and you'll be stuck in usually eighth gear, and it's too high of a gear. And it always gets in this mode where the car's not moving, and all you do is hear this chugging.
If you've
feel.
ever driven a car with a bent wheel, that's almost what it feels like. I'm not sure if it's the cameras picking up all that well, but there's like this, almost like it's a hum, right?
It's a hum, it's a vibration, it's like a frequency, a low frequency that's transmitting through the entire truck. And you'll notice it there when it's holding too high of a gear, but you'll also notice it when you're going like 45, where you start to feel almost like a growl or a vibration coming from the middle part of the car in the drive shaft or the rear differential. They don't have this drivetrain balanced out. And when you add the start-stop, and you can feel it again here, when you add the start-stop to it, it's killing the engine, creating a lot of vibration. It doesn't spin up right away, and then you get the vibration from the start-stop system when you're going. It's just a very frustrating, poorly tuned setup. That's one of the biggest deal breakers here for me. If you're going flat out, you don't feel it as much, and if you're going at higher speeds, you don't feel it that much. But for me, when I drove it, I had to keep it in sport, because that was the only way I could keep the transmission at a speed that didn't create this vibration.
And to be fair, this is a truck, but if you compare it to other trucks,
Yeah, they
don't
don't
have this problem.
Last thing I will say is all of this is here for fuel economy. It's here to improve that fuel economy number for that fleet average, and when you look down, my average is 19.7, and you can make the argument, well, it's a truck. It's still not good. You have all these sacrifices here just to get you that fuel economy number that isn't even that great.
No,
So with that said, Jack, let's head into the final thoughts.
Final thoughts on the Ford Ranger. If you can get the Tremor package for around $4,000, you get a lot for your money here in the midsize segment. You get skid plates, you get decent off-road suspension, you get great ride height and ground clearance, and it doesn't sacrifice your towing capability. It is extraordinarily good off-road, and of course, on-road there are some compromises. It rides a little bit rough, and it's a bit noisier with the tires, but it's not a total deal breaker, believe me. If you're coming from a full-size offering or a more off-roady vehicle, this is going to feel almost like an SUV. So that's pretty much where the pros end, aside from the exterior styling, which is definitely aged quite well. The interior feels cheap. It's extraordinarily dated, and I think most people are going to look at the price tag when you're paying over $40, and you're going to expect a lot more. And the fact that Ford has made this even more relevant with the Maverick, which is way cheaper, it has a better interior, and the Bronco is just the ultimate package, and even the F-150 is just, it's the truck. This is lost somewhere in the middle, and I think it's lost because they just put it in the market just to put it here. It's the older platform. I'm not going to even beat a dead horse with that. The biggest deal breaker continues to be the drivetrain. I think they've overdone it with the fuel conserving measures, and it makes it for a very choppy, rough, just hesitating like ride, and the drivetrain smoothness is not there, namely to any of the competitors that it's going against. So where does that leave you? Well, if you like the exterior, you like the Tremor pack, you might be okay with it. You might be okay with just how basic the interior is. They have improved a few things. But, I'm going to leave it at that. Competition's tough, and you're going to have to spend a lot of money to get this, so make a good decision. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.